So, a common problem that many classes have called upper-level goal is that the people that are teaching classes are not the best teachers for a variety of reasons. Some of them were hired not for the teaching ability, but for the research ability. Some applied for the research ability. Some of them did it for other reasons. Some did it for the elitism. And other times they're just out of touch with people because of just age gap, so that's not what they passionate about or something. Other times they're just way overloaded. They have to do a lot of bureaucracy. But this really, really hurts the overall education experience, obviously. Now, I've discussed a lot in the past about various ideas I have to make school in general better, but this is particularly for colleges to make it better when you don't have the best teacher available. One of the first ideas I have is to make more classes taught by students in a variety of formats, whether that is student forums, students TAing classes, and so on, or students leading a class themselves or group organizing study. We have to work on a variety of formats. You also have to figure out how they're not just goofing off. So maybe a student teaches the class, but a teacher observes them to make sure they're actually teaching, or there's an observer of some sort there. And that does take up a professor's time, but it's not as much time for a professor to take up because a professor doesn't have to grade or do as much coursework. They don't have to lecture, and they can zone out maybe a little bit. And if they're trusting, they might not be in every class. They may only show up randomly for some classes or every class. But this also could greatly benefit many of the students, because many of the students then could maybe learn how to present better, how to teach better. Teaching is also one of the best ways of learning materials. Some people actually might learn the materials more themselves better. They also, if they become professors or anything, they'll carry this over to become better teachers themselves or in the real world. So it could be valuable for them. Another thing that these students are probably more in touch with their classmates stuff because there's less of an age gap. Now that can also counter go back to it because maybe they're less respected in some ways. But that's maybe why you need an observer in some cases, when it's so improved. I could see it leading to unfair grade inflation or favoritism. My argument is that professors already do that, especially the old white hierarchy of professors, and this might actually bring in more diversity. But there is that argument, and we'll have to figure out a better system on one. Another version is just to make it have more online availability so people can record stuff and listen to it later. People can listen to environments they're more comfortable with, so they can learn better regardless of teachability. They can have other resources at disposal, and so on and so on. But also that having an online program means that people can look at it from more of a variety of places. So we can have one good teacher that teaches people all the way half a way around the world or something like that. So you need to have less teachers in one particular place. As just an idea that I am throwing out there. Now, also with online, you have to make sure that online course is accessible. So with the world, we also need to figure out how to give better internet access to everyone. Because a bunch of rural people, even in America, do not have good internet access. Now, we want to also look at PDF form. Well, that's actually a thought, is to actually maybe offer for online courses that they give you free internet or something like that, where you home and spread the internet as part of the course. Another one is to have a PDF of all the notes, and you have, and only stuff on the PDF will appear on the test. That way, even if you miss a bunch of classes, everyone has access to the same course material. Even if they're bad at teaching it, everyone can look at your course material and tell you what you need to learn. So if I can hire a tutor and just give them the PDFs to help me teach me, or a fellow student or someone. Now, I really do need to PDF exact course material, because you might say like, oh, everyone's teaching biology, but everyone teaches biology in a different way, focuses on different things. Different teachers also use different definitions, much more than you think for the same exact word. People emphasize different things. So like you do need an outline of the exact course material, but I'm saying all the course material for every class is somehow made in a PDF, maybe by a student note taker. This also makes it more available for disabled students, and if you have a PDF beforehand, you might even be able to look at the PDF before even starting the course and get a head start in all of this. Another idea along this line is to have an auto reader for the PDF for people that can listen to a PDF being read out loud. Now, this has some problems, of course, that if something is a complicated diagram, you can't read it out loud. But it could help people trying to study while they're sleeping in bed, or they're doing chores, or there's repetition, or people that more learn through speaking than reading. My fifth point is maybe we can make it so the students actually make the course material, or help make course material that is more appropriate. So we have like student note takers, and they can make notes for the whole class, so class can read it, and we can distribute it out for every year, like the best notes. Every year people get to look at it. Now, not everyone's forced to do it, because some people, it's not their skill set. And it should not be required skill, because in the real world, it can be good to have a note taker, but it's totally not necessary. You can have other better skills. Or they can make other course material, what's going to alleviate the stress from the teacher, give them practice and stuff, and make also course material that's more appropriate for different people. Also, you could have the same class, you have mobile note takers. Maybe a student could pick out the favorite note taker that talks in the style they like, or something like that. And then you can also use this as an alternative assignment even to get graded something for some students so they have less coursework to do. Another one to put out there is to make an alternative assignments with different ways that they can get graded on. Therefore, that they can have more, they feel less stressed out in doing it one way, but they also might learn different material from different professors at different ways. Or they can have more flexibility in stuff like other people teach them stuff, so they might tell them slightly different stuff, and this might impact them a little differently. Or the tutor might be able to better help them with certain coursework, so it also lets other people help them more. So alternative ways is maybe they might write, instead of a physical test, you could have quizzes, you could have one big test, quizzes, you could have essays, you could have PowerPoint presentations. You could also use this to take away some of the professor's teaching. To some extent, if they're making notes, you could also have different ways where they're rated by graded in like the flexible grading systems I've discussed in a few other videos, where different things count for a different portion of your grades. Maybe a teacher's particularly bad at teaching one point, so other blocks or other subjects within the bigger subject counts more to your grade. We can try to figure out a variety of ways of doing that. Another kind of idea is that schools or systems make more ways to pay for outside tutoring or help in a subject. We have seen it a little bit with some various tutoring app programs have now stuff for paired up with colleges. Sometimes you have internal tutors. All that ideas. Another thing that could be done is to make stuff have less fancy teaching. So by this I mean fancy teaching might seem appealing, but it's oftentimes worse. Visuals can really help, but visuals can be also overwhelming and turn off kids and be less accessible if you're trying to watch it at home or download it at home or remake it or something like that. If you're using fancy language, it becomes less accessible for many people. So telling people to think really, and teaching teachers and students to really think about the language and how fancy the stuff there is would really help, and trying to make it more of a less fancy, common ground thing. Now, now, another one is that you could have kids in the past took the class say what has already been taught in the class, say their opinions about class, give more feedback, and also give more write-ups. Some of them post anonymously in different formats so people can figure out what classes are better for them. Another kind of option would be another one is to have ways to meet up with kids in different classes and stuff like that. Took in the past, so meet up things, so you try and figure out. And also you could try to figure out ways that kids, that you have more of the same kids in the same class over and over again, so it becomes more easy. Like if you guys have 3 classes together, you're more likely to meet up for one of them than end up meeting for the second and third class, or something like that. So that could help out in figuring out better class scheduling in general. Another thing is maybe figuring out how to match people better with teachers that are more supportive of the neurotype, or making more teacher bios of the teaching method and stuff like that, so people get more engaged with the type of teaching. Maybe also matching kids more up with that stuff might help, because also sometimes kids that are different than other kids do not give best advice to each other. They'll say, yeah, this is really easy when it's really hard for someone, and vice versa. Happened to me all the time with scheduling and people giving me advice. This has really messed me up more than helped me and gaslit me. Another would be is to figure out how to make the schedule better, more adjusted to fit people's preferences better. So when they're at the optimum, early morning, more people will probably be sleepy or not paying attention or something like that, or might not work best for the professor. So figuring out systems that can better figure out times, maybe through student surveys or something, might help a lot more. Now, there's also the con of this is that it makes the whole system more complicated. You might make it hard to plan way ahead because your class might change up times with different things. So we have those pros and cons. We can also try to think about adjustable schedules in other ways. Film recordings of class, more TA sessions at different times. So maybe you have one fixed TA session that's always at that time every year, but you also have random TA sessions so people miss that at different times. You could try to figure out other things like that, so some flexibility, some not. I mean, maybe classes outside of the normal ones, like over weekends or something. But you have to figure out, and you also don't want to adjust the schedule and become overloading. You try to think, oh, there's more time now, let's overload the kids. Because people do need, it turns out, breaks. There could be also more work to figure out what type of teacher different teachers are and matching for different teachers, because sometimes the compatibility of teachers with similar struggles or ways of talking something will really help. Some teachers are better with visuals, some teachers are better lecturers, some teachers are better with hands-on activities. So figuring out that those ones could do it a lot. Well, I mean, help a lot. Another thing that could help a lot is to make high school teach more advanced subjects, so you have to take less of it. These high school teachers are more equipped or take off some workload when you college. So either you have to do less in college or have more freedom in college, which means better learning, or you in high school get better teachers or options. Or if the high school is messed up, you can wait to take in the college when you want to learn it. So figuring out ways of just doing that in high school. This could include having more online classes in high school before you go into college. Now also if we can figure out a way to hire less research type people, so we have more teacher type people, that might also help a lot. And opening up more types of teaching and giving some of them more benefits so they stay longer, so they can actually teach and stuff like that. And also figuring out how to match them better, which classes there are a good teacher in actually, not just give them whatever class they want kind of thing. So Another idea is also just to make sure that everyone has better pay, because better pay means people have to work, um, and everyone doing work means they have to stress out with less stuff, and they have more freedom just to actually teach and do good work in many, many ways. Another good idea is to make this whole thing just less bureaucratic and also make the whole system less bureaucratic, because some professors saying they're spending over 50% of the time on bureaucracy. You see it more and more and more that there's grant writing, that all the forms, assessments, stuff happening, and all the nonsense takes away people's time to teach, but also means they're stressed out, so they don't teach as well. They look less forward to it, so they make sacrifices, or they make cut corners here and there. Instead of having more time, so they take it more seriously and do a better job in a more relaxed state, and more time to also pay attention to students. And also, a less happy person is less good teacher, and they also know less because they have less time. Also, if we have less people working bureaucracy and stuff and nonsense where they can work on other things like improving teaching, improving student outcome, or becoming teachers themselves. So this whole thing about enhancement, getting rid of some enhancement, could really, really help the whole system improve. Also, having better rooms can help people with focus and much and more. And I'm thinking about better rooms in terms of better lighting that's less harsh. I'm thinking about better rooms in terms of being quieter, but also having more clean air. Rooms that are more easily navigable in the building, so there's a little less stress. Hallways that are less crowded. Options to also zoom into everyone, and better like electronics in the room. Rooms that have better viewing, so people have to turn their heads less. Just every little improvement helps a little bit, and they all add up. But they will impact more significantly people with disabilities or have the most obstacles. Again, another idea, kind of along this line, is to have try to make this more of a lab course and lab-based, or in a way that students are actually helping professors. I've had to take classes where I've been making strains of bacteria that actually help the professor with their research, or something like that. And if you do stuff like that, a professor is more likely to be enthusiastic because you're doing stuff they like. But also you're doing work for a professor, so they feel more motivated. And it's also more hands-on, so you might learn more. And that's more what they can teach compared to learning it watching an online YouTube video by a stranger. Something I skipped over, but I want to say is also a multi-grading system might be a good idea. By a multi-grading system, I mean, multiple people grade your work, because sometimes one person's a little biased. They can't read handwriting, so they take off more points, or they don't like the format you do, or something like that. And these biases seep in more than you think. I really had it be a difference between grades between 0 and 100% at best. And we should actually take the highest score, not the median, I think. Because the highest score is probably the people you most get along with in life, and you'll try to gravitate towards people that think better than of you than people that think worse of you. So I think in some ways it's more realistic to take the high score, and those people are probably the people are less biased against you, because people are not always biased towards people. The worst case scenario is usually when they're biased against, personally, my personal experience and opinion. Another idea is to have more other options of getting credits for college. They give you an alternative. So, an example of this would be having more summer credits or winter credits or credits during break. It could also be taking outside experiences like lab classes or travels or industry work for credit. Something that's not as traditional, but it's not as reliant on the same groups of professors always, or the one professor does it for a longer period of time. So during the school year, they teach, but during the summer, they give a club or class that actually helps them in some way, but also helps teach it. And that also can help students graduate better, because it can mean they can take less courses at one time, so they can spread out the courses more of a whole year and be less stressed out about them so they can have more room to learn or do other things. And if they want to and they miss, or if they miss some time because of sickness, they can make it up better later on. So that increased flexibility could be great. Another idea is to have material that is repeated every year, but students just keep editing and updating it to make it better and better and better. So that works out. Yet another idea is to have less one track, more different tracks open up in the field, or more different ways of more easily splitting up your major or something, so you can figure out how to customize, avoid bad teachers, or go to teachers more compatible for you, or something like that. And that can help easily. Another one is to have just more teachers in general. Having more teachers in general could be a huge help in a variety of ways. Having more teachers in general could, how would I say it? Means that each teacher can focus on one student more. They have less burnout, so they're more likely to do a good job. If you have more people doing teaching, if they also do other things on the side, teaching they still might be able to do as much research. Having a better teaching experience also might mean students are more motivated and actually become better teachers themselves more. So a variety of ones. Now, if you want more people to be teachers, you also have to incentivize teaching with better pays and healthcare and jobs insurance, perhaps through government programs. And we have to figure out how to make the job less stressful. What some of the other things I've talked about might help with that. Another idea is to make public colleges that are mostly online or fully online that also can offer alternative credits to the more prestigious ones. And this can make it more of a system that if you have a bad teacher, you have a fallback option or something. Or if you have bad teachers in general, or it could just reduce the load on each teacher because a teacher only has to maybe teach half the kids, so they can teach better because all the other ones are doing public online things. And also having more people go to college or something means that maybe we can improve the more program as more people go through it and figure out how to make it better, how to teach it better, stuff like that. It can also connect to their own kids once they have kids or stuff like that, or family members. Another one is to choose your peers more carefully and have better peer choice. Peer choice in a variety of methods, maybe from online matching for like a social media thing, maybe for like writing disclosures, maybe for like putting preferences online, so you can have more support in the system. A fancier way is that if we can figure out better programming options for like scheduling to help you figure out more of an optimum schedule. So you can put in what I was doing drop ad at my college. We didn't have the most advanced system, but we had more advanced system than some of the other colleges. And what our system did was basically you could look up a bunch of courses based on a pre-programmed and this. So it's one time period or a bunch of time periods and this. What if you could have like and or not? So like you could say like any class at this time or this time, or any class, not everything but not this time. You can go for like very fancy logic, and then you could figure out more of an optimal schedule compared to other people. By that one, you don't have to do as much searching and stuff, so you can find a better one because it's doing that more complex logic more at once for you. But if it did that for drop ad and like preferences like that, where you could put in a variety of different time schedules that are best for you, maybe you could find a better for the schedule for you. And that data, by finding better schedules in the past for you, might be used in the future to design a better program overall with stuff and better itemized that can see what people do not want two classes at the same time better, that these two classes should be at different times more, and that's more optimal overall for every single person out there. You could have ones that also, besides using fancier logic with scheduling, like you give it a bunch of different schedules or something like that. It could also, you could use it to maybe plan like semesters ahead and get some idea about your semesters or multi-year plan to figure out when it takes them. So you can take it either this year or next year and tries to optimize it from that point. And it tells the school also better what it wants in the future for the kids so they can plan better for overall in like way ahead in that way and make sure you don't miss out at all. It's like a once in a 2-year program. Just an idea I am throwing out there. Another thing to talk about is to have more different types of gap year programs. And having more types of gap year programs could be hugely beneficial in a variety of means. So I'm talking about a bunch of programs, and now a bunch of programs that kids, let's say they struggle because they took a course, and the teacher teaches that course once every 3 years. Okay, well, maybe if they take a gap year, they can plan the gap year so they miss that teacher. I mean, I would have done that for one particularly bad teacher. Or you could have it so that they can study up on material before going into school so they can be better prepared if the material is bad. Or they can have the gap year program just so for health reasons they can recover better and be healthier when they go to college. Or you can have it account for credit. Or in that gap year program, they could be teaching or doing other work, helping other students. But the problem with the gap year programs is we have them, but we don't emphasize making this sound like a great idea and one they can do any time with very little warning. So colleges need to re-emphasize them as something anybody can do anytime throughout the college career to any extent. Really, that they can take the whole year off, that they can take just a semester year off, and having more flexible ones. Now, the major hurdle of having these gap year programs, though, is that colleges will have to be less profit motivated in some ways because this messes up the profit margins because they can't plan ahead as much, so they might take in too little students or too many students one year and get over or underloaded. And they might not know the income and plan ahead the best with their income levels and other resources. If they take the safe bets routes every single time, they'll be safe, but the colleges want to take some risk and make the maximum amount of money, unfortunately. Is there a perfect way around this? Well, the more they do this, the more they can figure out ways of making money if there's too little people on campus. Maybe if there's too little people on campus, they can hold more outside events to bring in people, like so like they hold more lectures when the lecture hall's not filled. Maybe they hold more summer programs. Maybe they have gap year programs they help themselves host so they get some of that money in return. I don't know, but I think they can solve it and actually return profits. But should they be focused on profits? That's a whole different question. And I think they shouldn't be focused on profits because that hurts actually education overall because then people stop focusing on actually teaching. Another idea to have this whole thing get a little better is to have packets, meals, and other delivery things so people have to focus less on cooking and for themselves, or taking care of themselves. They can focus more on studying, learning. They're less stressed out, so they can do it better. That also means better student pay and better student support. Another one, also having packets meals in particular, could help people that focus because they're not hungry in class or rushing in class to get food. Or they could even eat in some classes. Eating classes has been problematic because it might set off some people with food sensitivities or sensory sensitivities. So I go back and forth with that. And you could have also packet system where you get delivered packets meals to your door. They just freeze or you just have to heat up for the week. Or you could have ones made in like a vending machine And even in the future, you could have vending machines that make customized meals with 3D printers or all this really fancy tech that is not out there yet. Or some that's out there but making more. And or it could take a little different foods and put them in different packages. They could pre-order it, or you could have students make it, or other people, faculty, and then deliver it to you in a set location. But pre-order it in class, or something like that, or pre-order it like days before. This really is a really endless possibility with that. But I'm not only talking about packaged food even that I wanted. We can also talk about drinks. We can also talk about cleaning items, school items, so you get a new notebook every now and then as school supplies run low. Trying to think about what you could have, bikes on campus or like transportation on campus that's more regular to that. I mean, my school did try out the bikes, but the bike program was horrible because we were on a hill and everyone rolled down the hill, but not up the hill, and the bikes were not durable and people did not take care of them, so they all broke. Also, so yeah, you have to think about the transportation a little bit more. But we can start listing off a bunch of student services and just expanding them so people just have to think less. And maybe also making a medical center part of the school, which can teach kids all sorts of things about medicine, and maybe also they can do more community service there. But also means that kids would have more access to healthcare and actually be healthier themselves. Another thing is to have more different spaces and better study spaces that are either more quiet, that they have less sensory overloaded lights and stuff. You can choose lights, having them more distributed about the campus so that people are not overloaded, having loud ones. And you need variety because different people study in different ways and have different sensitivities. But even the same person might sometimes want to study in X way, but other times they want to study in Z way, which is totally fine depending on the subject or how they're feeling, or something like that. One neat idea for making the science spaces more inclusive is to have different pods or something that you can close off stuff so you can block out light or have place or noise without disrupting everyone else around you. Now, study spaces do require more maintenance, so you also have to teach kids to respect the study spaces more and more and more. Some additional ideas that I forgot to put down here would be also to make more courses on good pedagogy, or pedagogy, P-D-A-G-O-G-Y, which is a study of teaching. But a lot of that study of teaching is really based on old ideas that we've proven wrong, or common sense tells us wrong. Other times it is based on statistical averages or studies in a very biased population, so it doesn't really apply to everyone. But it is useful, but we would also need to really think about making the field of whole pedagogy more inclusive. Like oftentimes big ideas is like, let's test, which just hurts people. Or another big idea that is oftentimes hurting is like, let's include every visual, multi-sensory thing and make it so many teeth in so many different ways. And yes, that does help some people, but other times it can overload the kid. So the better option sometimes is not to teach in 50 million different ways, but have 50 million different ways of teaching kid and they pick which way works best for them. Or like other misconceptions, like it works for 99% students, but 1% students it doesn't work. But 1% students it really does hurt. So you have to figure out ways of helping everyone. This means more choice oftentimes. Other ways that pedagogy can get messed up with some of the studies is that they make it sound like that students only learning one subject. So like if you double the time for one subject, they might learn more because you force them to cram more stuff into them. But on the other hand, they get more burnout if you do it for all the subjects and then the class and burn and learn nothing. Well, thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe. It really helps stand out. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers in the year and 4,000 watches, which is really hard, but you help I think can do it. Also, if you have any ideas for future videos, comments, or suggestions, please leave in the comment section below. Again, thank you very much, and goodbye.